Grace Miller, 34, a seasoned nurse at Lincoln Memorial Hospital in North Carolina, was recognized for three things: her blonde ponytail, the red pen clipped to her pocket, and her unwavering commitment to patients. Her coworkers often murmured behind the nurse's station. Try hard, some sneered. Others, with barely concealed disdain, referred to her as Saint Grace. Yet patients specifically asked for her, thankful she remembered their grandkids' names or held their hands through tough procedures. Grace lived by herself in a simple apartment, just 15 minutes from work. She chose nursing after caring for her father during his final days battling stage 4 lung cancer. "You've got healing hands," he once told her. That line became her compass through brutal night shifts and thankless routines. Tuesday began like countless others. Grace had just recorded a patient's vitals when a disturbance broke out at the ER entrance. An older man, maybe 65 or 70, stumbled in through the sliding doors. A faded military jacket hung from his thin shoulders, blood soaked through his left sleeve, and sweat gleamed on his face. His eyes darted wildly, dazed and unfocused. "Sir, you need to register," the front desk clerk called. "Do you have insurance? Any ID?" The man tapped his pockets with his good hand, but came up empty. "I'm sorry, but without insurance or identification." Grace stepped forward before the receptionist could continue. "Sir, let me help you," she said, guiding him into a side room. "Nancy, page Dr. Harrison, please." Nancy hesitated. "He hasn't checked in yet." "He's bleeding," Grace snapped. "Let's stabilize him first, deal with paperwork after." Inside the ER assessment room, Grace helped the man onto the bed. His breathing was shallow, skin clammy. The wound wasn't deep but clearly infected. "Sir, can you tell me your name?" she asked while prepping supplies. "Thomas," he managed. "Just Thomas." Grace called for a physician 3 separate times. Each time, the answer was the same. They were too busy with registered patients. One, Dr. Raymond, even walked by, gave a brief glance, and kept moving without stopping. Thomas was slipping, his blood pressure fell, and the infection was progressing. She stood at the crossroad between rules and her pledge to care. Her thoughts went to her father. His eyes held that same helpless look in his last days. A hospice nurse had once gone beyond protocol to ease his pain when no one else would. "Grace, you can't touch him," warned Linda, a fellow nurse peeking inside. "No doctor's orders, no treatment. You know the drill." Grace hesitated, biting her lip. Then she moved into action. She cleaned the wound, administered antibiotics, and inserted an IV. 15 years of experience guiding each motion. Someone took pictures, probably Linda. A doctor in the hallway just shook his head and walked away. Once Thomas stabilized, his eyes cleared for a moment. "Just need a few hours," he whispered. "Then I'll leave. Thank you." Grace offered a warm smile. "You're safe. You're staying here." Then Catherine Wells, the hospital's top administrator, appeared in the doorway. Her eyes widened at the unauthorized IV. "What do you think you're doing?" she barked, voice growing louder. "Nurses can't treat without permission. You violated protocol." Grace stayed calm, hands still firm on the bandage. "He needed urgent care. That's not yours to decide." Catherine's face flushed. "Security cameras caught everything. My office, now." As she was led out, Thomas grabbed her wrist with unexpected strength. "Remember," he murmured, "they'll come." She didn't understand, but 15 minutes later, seated before Catherine and the hospital board, she grasped the weight of her actions. 15 years of work," Catherine said icily, "wasted because you couldn't follow simple rules." The board watched surveillance footage, Grace treating Thomas against guidelines, her every move displayed in high resolution. If you've ever witnessed someone punished for doing the right thing, keep watching. Earlier, while changing Thomas into a gown before being summoned, she had noticed something odd. A faded eagle tattoo across his chest, the Marine Corps emblem. More telling were the shrapnel scars dotting his arm, not new wounds, but relics of long-past battles. She'd also seen a news story about Afghanistan playing on the TV. Thomas reacted instantly. His pulse surged, sweat beaded, and his gaze locked on the screen with a haunted look. Not a standard response from a typical vet. By the afternoon, the fallout hit like a chain reaction. Grace received a formal suspension. No pay, no contact with patients. Her badge was deactivated. A final humiliation as she carried a cardboard box of personal items to her car. Nurses she had worked alongside for years avoided eye contact. Only Melissa, a second-year nurse, came over. "What you did was courageous," she whispered. "Or foolish," Grace replied, a weary smile tugging at her lips. "Depends who you ask." At home, she saw the damage had spread. A viral anonymous post twisted security footage to portray her as reckless. The comment section was harsh. "Fire her. Pretending to be a doctor should be a crime. Who does she think she is?" Her mother called, voice tense. "Gracie, not again. You always get in trouble for helping too much." "What was I supposed to do, Mom? Let him bleed out?" "There are protocols for a reason, sweetheart." It wasn't her first time skirting rules. During COVID, she'd sneaked in an iPad so a dying patient could say goodbye to family. Last year, she stayed 4 extra hours just to sit with a teen girl awaiting a psych bed. She'd been reprimanded then, but never suspended. After hanging up, she found something in her scrubs, an object Thomas had slipped into her hand before security came. A small, tarnished silver badge, heavy for its size, its edges worn from years of use. "If anything happens, keep this," he'd said. "They'll know." "Who?" she'd asked. He only gave a faint smile, closed his eyes, and said nothing more. Under her kitchen light, she studied the badge. On the back was one line: Holloway Class 1968. No other markings, no branch, no serial number, nothing that could ID the owner. Curious, she searched online. Holloway, military, 1968. Few results appeared, but one stood out. A Colonel James Holloway, reported missing in 2005 during a covert mission in the Middle East, presumed dead after 2 years of no contact. The fuzzy image on the site showed a younger, sharper version of Thomas. "That's not possible," Grace whispered. The timelines didn't make sense. He'd have been in his 70s when he vanished, long past enlistment age. Still, something about the connection gnawed at her. As she dug deeper, her laptop abruptly froze. When it restarted, her search history had vanished. Then her phone buzzed. An unknown number sent a message. "Do you know who you saved today?" Heart racing, Grace ran to the window. A black SUV sat parked exactly 100 meters from her place, engine quietly humming. She stared until it pulled away, gliding into the darkness. Sleep never came. The badge felt heavier than ever on her nightstand, like it held more than old metal, like it contained buried truths. By morning, more bad news awaited. A formal letter summoning her to a disciplinary hearing. Then her bank called. Her account was frozen due to unusual activity. She had used her own credit card to buy medical supplies for Thomas after the hospital's inventory system locked her out. Social media had turned nastier. Someone had doxed her, revealing her home address and phone number. The nurse who thinks she's above the law began trending locally. 4 patients spoke in her defense, but their support was drowned out by the online outrage machine. By midday, Grace seriously contemplated walking away from medicine forever. 15 years of service, and for what? To be vilified for helping someone in crisis? She started collecting her nursing credentials, updating her resume for a career far from healthcare, when her doorbell rang. On the porch stood a man in a pristine black suit, clean-shaven, emotionless, with an unmistakable military bearing. Parked at the curb was another black SUV. "Miss Miller," he said, not as a question but as a confirmation. "Who's asking?" Grace replied, one hand instinctively wrapping around the badge clipped in her pocket. "By those who understand what took place yesterday." He handed her a sealed envelope. "Your country needs you to come with us right now." Inside was a photograph. Thomas, but much younger, standing beside a helicopter. Scrawled across the back, "Holloway 1968, Operation Kingfisher." "Is he alive?" Grace asked. "Ma'am, if you'll come with us, all your questions will be answered," As the SUV drove through unfamiliar streets, Grace realized that the decision she'd made yesterday extended far beyond hospital rules. She had saved someone important, someone whose very existence appeared to be top secret. The vehicle pulled into an airstrip where a small jet was waiting. As Grace boarded, she wondered what kind of veteran warranted this level of secrecy and why, of all hospitals in North Carolina, he had ended up in hers. Have you ever considered what happens when a simple act of compassion meets extraordinary circumstances? Keep watching to learn how one nurse's kindness unraveled decades of hidden truths. The next morning, while Grace remained missing, her phone off, her apartment empty, Lincoln Memorial Hospital continued its routine. Staff whispered about her disappearance at the disciplinary hearing. Theories circulated. She'd skipped town, suffered a breakdown, or worse. Catherine Wells, the administrator who had suspended her, fielded several calls from the hospital's legal team. The viral video had triggered a media storm, with public opinion fiercely divided. Veterans groups were planning a protest later that day. Meanwhile, on morning talk shows, healthcare experts debated procedure versus compassion. "This nurse broke every protocol," said an administrator from another hospital. "Sometimes compassion outranks rules," countered a senior physician. "What's medicine for if not to heal?" The internet exploded with hashtags both condemning and supporting Grace. Journalists reached out to her previous patients, who unanimously praised her dedication. Her empty apartment became a symbolic site. Local veterans left handwritten notes and flowers by her door. Back at the hospital, Catherine Wells convened an urgent staff meeting to address the crisis. "We can't allow staff to improvise medical care," she stated. "Nurse Miller may have meant well, but her actions endangered a patient and violated fundamental policies." A young resident spoke up. "With all due respect, ma'am, the patient was in medical distress and being denied treatment." "There are proper procedures," Catherine responded. "This is not a combat zone. We have systems in place for a reason." Issue. At 4:37 p.m., the atmosphere shifted. A low mechanical hum drew attention to the hospital's front entrance. 6 identical black SUVs pulled up in tight formation, parking in a semicircle outside. Hospital security moved forward, then hesitated as uniformed men and women in full Marine Corps dress emerged. Their precision spoke of elite discipline. Visitors pressed to the windows. Staff paused, clipboards forgotten. "What is happening?" a nurse whispered from the second-floor station. "Those are Marines," an orderly answered. "And not just any Marines. Full dress." A distinguished officer led the group through the hospital's sliding doors, a leather portfolio in hand. The reception area fell silent as he approached the front desk. "I need to speak with Catherine Wells and the hospital board immediately." "Sir, do you have an appointment?" the receptionist asked, her voice shaky under his intense gaze. "No, ma'am, but they'll want to see me." He placed an ID on the desk. "Major Robert Lewis, United States Marine Corps, Special Intelligence Division. This concerns Nurse Grace Miller." The name shot through the lobby like an electric jolt. Phones came out. Someone tipped off the media. Within half an hour, news vans jammed the parking lot, reporters scrambling for position. Major Lewis ignored their questions, standing at parade rest, unmoved. Catherine Wells descended from the elevator, flanked by 2 board members and legal counsel. Her usual poise faltered at the sight of uniformed Marines in her lobby. "Major Lewis," she said, offering a handshake. "This is highly unusual." "Miss Wells," he interrupted, not taking her hand. "Yesterday at 11 a.m., one of your nurses rendered life-saving care to a man denied treatment over lack of ID. That man was Colonel James Holloway." A wave of murmurs rippled through the growing crowd. "You may not recognize the name," Major Lewis went on, "but to us, he's a national asset. His existence has been classified for over 2 decades. He opened his portfolio, revealing documents marked with government seals. Colonel Holloway was not missing in action, as reported. He was running deep cover missions critical to national safety. His death was faked to protect both him and his objectives." Catherine turned pale. "We had no way of knowing." "Exactly," Major Lewis said. "You had no way of knowing. But Grace Miller didn't need a dossier. She saw a human being in crisis and acted with integrity, something that seems lacking in this facility. Staff continued to gather, drawn to the confrontation. Melissa, the young nurse who had defended Grace, made her way forward, recording everything. Colonel Holloway was returning with intelligence vital to U.S. operations in 3 war zones. Had he died of that untreated wound, those 20 years of work would have died with him. Major Lewis's tone hardened. Due to injuries sustained in the field, he was unable to verify his identity. The sepsis affecting him impaired cognitive functions. Still, your hospital turned him away based solely on red tape. Facing the now public confrontation, he turned to the cameras. Nurse Miller did more than treat a man. She preserved national security. I can't explain it all here. He handed Catherine a formal notice. This summons requires your hospital to issue a public apology, reinstate Nurse Miller with full back pay and benefits, and retract all punitive actions. Catherine took the papers with trembling fingers. If this is a matter of national security, then it's a matter of basic decency, Major Lewis corrected. The national security implications only highlight the magnitude of her decision. A commotion at the main doors interrupted him. Grace walked in, flanked by 2 Marines. She looked weary but composed, her trademark ponytail in place. Behind her stood Thomas, Colonel Holloway, now in civilian clothes, his arm properly bandaged. The staff parted for them. Some who had distanced themselves from Grace now stared in disbelief. Linda, the nurse who had photographed Grace, backed away into the crowd. Grace, Catherine began, there seems to have been— Miss Wells, Major Lewis interrupted, the U.S. government does not accept excuses. A formal, public apology, now. With Marines standing tall behind her and cameras rolling, Catherine's composed exterior cracked. Nurse Miller, on behalf of Lincoln Memorial Hospital, I deeply regret the unfair treatment you received. Your actions represent the true spirit of healthcare. We were wrong to suspend you. We ask you to return, with the highest regard. Grace remained calm. I'll need some time to consider. Colonel Holloway stepped up. Though still weak, his commanding presence was undeniable. This woman didn't just save my life. She preserved intelligence that will protect countless others. While this hospital let paperwork outweigh patient care, she saw a fellow human in pain. Isn't that what medicine is about? His quiet conviction stilled the room. I've seen both humanity's worst and best over the past 20 years. Yesterday, I saw its best in Nurse Miller. A week later, Grace stood in a place she never thought she'd be, the Pentagon. During a private ceremony, attended by top military leaders, she received the Civilian Service Medal and a letter of thanks from the Secretary of Defense. The intel Colonel Holloway recovered will reshape our counterterrorism strategies in North Africa, an official told her. Had he died, it would have vanished. After the ceremony, Holloway, now in a simple gray suit, approached her. 2 decades ago, I took a mission that required complete erasure. My wife died thinking I was KIA. My kids grew up without me. He showed her a photo of 3 grown children, each with families. Next week, I meet my grandkids, for the first time, and I owe that to you. I just did what a nurse should, Grace said quietly. No, Holloway replied. Most follow rules. You followed your heart, that's rare. He gave her a gentle hug, careful of his injury. Thank you for letting me finish my mission, and finally return to truth. When Grace came back to Lincoln Memorial, everything had changed. The story was national news. Nurse suspended for treating. Veteran revealed as covert operative. The hospital board named her the lead emergency nurse for the night shift. Former skeptics now looked at her with a mix of respect and caution. But the most significant shift wasn't in how others viewed her. It was how she saw herself. For years, Grace had questioned if her father's words about healing hands were just a dying man's comfort to his daughter. Now she realized healing meant more than medical procedures. At times, it meant having the courage to stand alone. Have you ever witnessed someone being vindicated in a way no one ever saw coming? Type courage if you believe that doing what's right always finds its way to recognition. often in ways we never anticipate. Grace returned to Lincoln Memorial Hospital, but she was no longer the same person who had once been walked out in shame. With her new role as night shift lead in emergency nursing came a level of respect, not demanded, but willingly offered. Colleagues who had once whispered about her now turned to her for advice. The red pen that never left her pocket became a quiet symbol among the younger staff. Be like Grace. Prioritize the patient, not just the policy. Every afternoon before clocking in, Grace would sit in the cafe at the corner, reading up on medical journals, or sometimes penning letters by hand to Colonel Holloway, whose location remained classified. Yet their bond endured, a connection shaped during a crisis that had changed both their lives. A silver badge now sat framed on her desk, and beside it, a handwritten note. Not all who wear white coats just follow rules. Some choose to do what's right. 3 months after everything happened, Grace got an unexpected parcel. Inside was an essay by a 12-year-old boy, Colonel Holloway's grandson, whom he had finally been reunited with. The essay, titled "The Nurse Who Made My Grandfather Cry," had won the state's Youth Writing Award. The boy had witnessed their reunion and described watching his mom meet her father, a man long believed to be dead. He wrote about how his strong, quiet grandfather had wept while telling the story of a nurse who helped when no one else would. "My grandfather says not all heroes wear uniforms," the boy wrote. "Some wear scrubs and carry red pens. And they do the right thing, even when it's not easy." The essay now hangs framed in the emergency department's central hallway, a daily reminder that the impact of their work reaches far beyond hospital walls. In her final interview with National News, Grace looked straight into the camera when asked what advice she had for other medical staff facing moral crossroads. "I didn't do anything remarkable," she said plainly. "I just didn't look away when someone was drowning. That's all any of us can do. Refuse to look away when we have the power to help." The investigation into Colonel Holloway's classified mission continued to uncover intelligence that shielded American interests overseas. Lives were preserved, threats were dismantled, and it all traced back to a nurse who chose empathy over protocol. The news segment closed with these words on screen. "Kindness seeks no reward, but it is always remembered." Even one small act of compassion can turn around a bad day, save a life, or change the world. Share an act of kindness that has stayed with you. Subscribe to Real Speak Diaries, where kindness echoes daily. And remember, liking this video isn't just for clicks. It's for the people in life who truly deserve it. A nurse has no authority to treat without a doctor's approval. "You've broken protocol," the hospital director bellowed, right in front of the entire staff. Grace stood calm, hands steady, as she pressed a dressing to the wound of an elderly man in a weathered military jacket. That very afternoon, 6 black SUVs rolled up outside the hospital gate. Men in uniform stepped out, eyes cold and alert. Who was that old man? And what could possibly cause an entire Marine unit to bow before a nurse who had just been suspended?